Hello, my name is Matthew, and I was very excited to get home today. My friend Ben sent me a message and he said that I had a package delivered, and I had a very good idea of what it was going to be and who it was from. So I'm going to show show it to you, and then tell you a story and talk a little bit more. Came in this packaging, which I opened, and I'll pull it out of here so we can look at it together. So, this is another Flaubert biography. This is by Frederick Brown. Show it to you. And before I go any further, I'll say this was a very generous gift from Jonny. He's another booktuber, really fascinating person, has a lot of really interesting book discussions. And I'll leave a link to one of his videos, maybe his most recent video. But earlier I had talked about how I went to a bookstore that had a really amazing selection, and they had a Flaubert biography, which I didn't buy, and I left feeling regretful. So then Amy from the Dusty Bookshelf, she sent me a message and said that she had a Flaubert biography, and if I was interested, she would send it to me. Which she did. And then I went back to the bookstore and I bought the other biography, and I talked about all of that. So then Jonny sends me a message and he says he has a biography that he would be happy to send me. So maybe 2 weeks ago, I went from no Flaubert biographies to having 3 Flaubert biographies. And I'm just tickled about the whole situation, and also so appreciative and grateful for several people's generosity. It's wonderful. So this one looks more recent than the other ones. It's a Harvard University Press. See if I can find the date. Alright, this is 2006, so this is certainly the most recent. So here's one Flaubert biography by Frederick Brown. I'll show you Amy's. Amy sent me one. There's a Life and Letters of Flaubert by Tarver. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Let's see if I can. This is by John Charles Tarver. Really nice. And then the one that I bought at the bookstore, which is also an old one. It looks like it's the biggest of the bunch. This is by Benjamin Bart. Big thing. So these are my Flaubert biographies. And I'm absolutely fascinated. This is gonna be a project for me. I think it'd be really interesting to read all 3 and go from knowing very little about Flaubert. I've always thought of him as a couch potato, to learning, that I'll be an expert in Flaubert's life in a few months, and I'll make a video telling you about what I learned and interesting things. So thank you, Jonny. Thank you, Amy, again. And I bought this one, so thank me. I also thought, since this is so Flaubert-centric, I would show you the Flaubert books that I already have, and then some Flaubert books that I've also recently acquired. So I'm just positive that Madame Bovary is Flaubert's most famous book in English, or at least in America. Um, it's a Lydia Davis translation. Um, and it was beautiful. I had read a different translation, which I also loved, so it's hard for me to compare translations. But it's a moving, powerful, terrifying story. Um, there's a few episodes that I just sort of can't shake. Um, Probably my favorite um, novel is The Sentimental Education. I have two translations. The one that I like is by Perdita Burlingame. It's a little old paperback. And then this one was also quite good, translated by Robert Baldick. Robert Baldick. It's a penguin. Uh, there's a scene in this where the main character is Frederick, and at a certain point he's trying to get a hold of somebody, and there's this extended episode of him basically running around Paris trying to get a hold of a very busy idler. It's someone who has coffee at a certain time at a certain coffee shop, and then he goes somewhere else to have his breakfast, and he goes somewhere to have his lunch and his tea, and he has drinks throughout the day. And it's this rigid schedule of someone who just has leisure activities all day long, and Frederick is always like just catching him right after he left. It's a really great episode, and the whole book is just wonderful. And the amazing thing about Flaubert is how you really have, it's difficult to pinpoint or pin down his style. So these other books, the books I just mentioned, are realistic, modern. There's a lot of psychological portraits and great world building detail of the time that he lived, or recent history. And then he'll have books like Salambo, which is this brutal story set in ancient Carthage, and the language is really purple, and some of the imagery is just like fantastical and nightmarish and strong. So a very, very different kind of novel, and still really just very, very good. Another strange one is The Temptation of St. Anthony. This is a, whatever it is, modern library classic. And this is probably the strangest of the bunch. It's St. Anthony, who I believe it's just over the course of one night has these visions of temptations, and all sorts of like mythological creatures appear, and it's just astounding. And it's fairly short and very, very odd. It's just under 200 pages. Great cover. I'll show that again. Three Tales. Again, stylistically, now we're talking about just three short stories. Each one is different from the other. They're each as memorable. So yeah, beautiful little powerful short stories. This would absolutely be my favorite novel by Flaubert if he had finished it. It's an unfinished novel, so the end starts to unravel with just kind of sketchy passages that are patched together to get you to some sort of ending. But it's Bouvard and Picochet. It's about these two idiots. They come into money and decide to move out into the country and try to learn every sort of knowledge there is. So they're going to learn about agriculture and gardening, and move on to mathematics, and then decide that they're going to write the great novel, and they'd go to drama and science and medicine. They're experimenting on the villagers. uh, it's like raucously funny. I remember so many, nearly every page was funny. It's slapstick, but incredibly relatable. There's just these parts where you feel like you know these situations, or just little moments that um, are accurate, which makes it so funny. And then the last thing that I had, I think, and I've talked about this before, is Flaubert in Egypt, and these are, it's his notebooks that he kept on his trip. And at this point, this was the only thing that I had any sort of insight into who Flaubert was as a person. His novels, I said that he can have this whole spectrum of different approaches to style. The one thing that is consistent throughout is that he's exacting and meticulous with the language that he uses, and his choice of word is seemingly just always perfect. So it's really interesting to read personal thoughts. I think he was intending on having this published, but even still. And then, just recently, I picked up 4 other things. I'm amassing a Flaubert library, which is fine by me. I'll start with a French edition of Sentimental Education, and I think I've shown all of these already, so whatever, I'll just have everything in one video. I can't read French, I can't speak French, I basically know 0 French, but I've been learning a little bit, practicing and things like that, so I would love to be able to read the original one day. For someone who was so careful with the exact word, it would just be such an incredible moment to even be able to read a page and understand it. And then 2 selections of letters. One I've already talked about at length, Flaubert and Turgenev. And the other one is his correspondence with George Sand, which I haven't dipped into yet. But the letters of Turgenev were, I think it's pronounced Turgenev, I think, was eye-opening. So I'm really looking forward to reading the other collection of letters. And the last thing, which I've mentioned before briefly, is a collection of his early writings. So with all of this stuff, I'm just going to end up having such a great sense of who he was and what kind of writer he was, and I imagine the biographies are going to go into how he put his books together in some ways, and reading his early writings and getting an idea of what his writing was like before he was the great Flaubert and things like that. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. These are all things Flaubert. And again, a big, huge thank you to Jonny for this. And Amy, I promise that I am going to read all of this stuff and then share that with you. So kind of a longer video, but I had a bunch of stuff to show you that I wanted to show you. Leave me a comment if you would like. Let me know. Let me know if you enjoy reading Flaubert, or the certain novels or stories of his that you like. And that's it. So thank you to everybody, and thank you for watching, and everybody take care. Thanks, bye.